Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod. I'm your host, Benjamin Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Coming to you tonight from another random anonymous hotel room someplace in northern New England. A little bit of a work trip here for myself, so I wanted to make sure I could at least get one video done on this trip. I do have 8 more season previews to do, and it's September 30th, so I am very quickly running out of time to get these done. I am going to get them done. We may have a couple of days with 2-a-days, perhaps, just try to get these in. We are going to talk tonight about the Vancouver Canucks, a playoff team a year ago, first place Pacific team from a year ago, and kind of a little bit of a Boston Bruins West when you look at some of their acquisitions. But before we do that, I do want to get into a little bit of Boston Bruins news over the past couple of days. They did have their first kind of camp releases, players heading down to Providence. I'm not going to go over every single one of them, but a couple of names that kind of stood out to me. And Mark McLaughlin was waived. I do believe he cleared waivers. I haven't actually checked the news on that, but I know that was about a day ago. Little chance that any of these players being waived around the league are going to get picked up. Every team is just so full right now and kind of going through the same process that Boston's going through. So most likely McLaughlin ends up back there in Providence. Yeah, a little disappointed. I was hoping to see more out of him in camp. Kid that came up a couple of years ago, local kid. Just quite haven't seen enough, to make sure he can earn that spot. Just hasn't quite happened for him yet. But really, guys, the big news, Fabian Lysell and Georgi Merkulov also heading back to Providence. I think Lysell has been a big story coming into camp. Could he earn that wing spot on the second line? I thought he did enough to at least hang around camp a little bit longer. Was a little surprised he was let go or sent back to Providence so quickly. But I do think there's a future there. I do think he's improved. I do think he saw some improvement, especially that second game he played in the preseason. Could be the coach who said, hey, he's not making the team. Let him get down to Providence, get acclimated, get ready to go for that season. My best guess is you see him up in Boston at some point this year. Curious to see how he starts down there in Providence. Listen, any Bruins fan's going to be cheering for him. Merkulov, again, not surprised. He was, I think, a step behind Lysell in terms of chances to earn a spot, but he did a lot of good things. I think long term, he could end up here in Boston, maybe not this year, but next year. Like a lot of his board play, good passer, a little rough in that first game, I thought, but I think definitely a kid to be watching for. All of these moves, you wonder, especially with the Lysell move, does this mean that Tyler Johnson has made the team? Still hasn't signed, still on a PTO, but kind of curious if maybe that's the spot that Johnson's going to take, the spot that maybe Lysell was shooting for. So anyway, we will see. Of course, I'm recording this Monday, and we did have the Boston Bruins press conference, opening season kind of press conference, and a couple of storylines I think that maybe came out of that. I'm not going to address them all here because we do want to get on to the Vancouver Canucks. And I don't want to bore poor Canuck fans with Boston Bruins talk. That's the last thing they want to talk about, hear about. But needless to say, I think Cam Neely threw the gauntlet down today with his $64 million comment. So be very curious to see what happens here over the coming days with this Jeremy Swayman chatter. Quite frankly, I'm getting tired of talking about it. I just wish it would go away, meaning I wish it would just they could get the contract done and we could all move on. But we got to still talk about it, I guess. But we're not going to do any more of that here. Let's get on to the Vancouver Canucks. I'm going to start with head coach Rick Tocchet. Been a coach now with Tampa, Arizona, and, of course, now Vancouver. Was, of course, on that TNT panel. Did a great job there. I thought was kind of a loss there for TNT, but really has done a great job in Vancouver since coming over, taking over for Bruce Boudreau. Was it about a year and a half ago, I guess now. But he has coached in 556 games, has a 248 .235 and 73 record. That's good for a .512 winning percentage. Playoffs, he's 11-11, so right there at .500. I thought did just a great job with this group a year ago. I'll be curious to see how they answer that up. Salary cap, they are right at the bottom there. They've got just over $90,000 under the cap, so not much left there. They do have 22 of the 23 active roster spots filled. So there'll be a little bit of maneuvering. There always is, whether it be LTIR or players going down to, the AHL level. There's always, easily moves to be made that these teams can maneuver that number, but they're basically right there at the cap. Talking about the first round, they did not have a first round pick this year, so that one's easy. I'll move right on from that. 2023-2024, they were 50-23-9, 109 points. That was good for first in the Pacific Division. Just a great year out of this Canucks team. I don't know how many people had Vancouver winning that division, a year ago, but just a great regular season. We all remember. I believe it was the games there early against Edmonton when they kind of took Edmonton to task, and that was the beginning of Edmonton really having that hard stretch there at the beginning of the year. Vancouver had a lot to say about that. Odd how the tables turned. They do lose to Edmonton in the second round of that playoffs, and of course by that time we know Demko wasn't out there, so they were down there. They're starting goaltender, and Edmonton was just kind of a train at that point in the season. So no shame in losing to McDavid and Draisaitl in that group. But I'm sure Vancouver is hoping for a little bit more this season. Team stats last season, they were goals for 3.4 goals per game. That was good for sixth place in the league. Goals against 2.70, tied for fifth. They were plus 58 in the goal differential. Power play, they were 22.7%, good for 11th. PK, they were 79.1, good for 17th. And the faceoff dot, they were quite good, 52.1%, good for 8th place. So, yeah, some real nice metrics there. No surprise to see where they were in the standings when you look at those numbers. Core skaters, center JT Miller played in 81 games, had 37 goals, 66 assists for 103 points. Defenseman Quinn Hughes, 82 games played for him, 17 goals, 75 assists, 92 points. Great year out of him. Center Elias Pettersson, 82 games for him, 34 goals, 55 assists for 89 points. And forward Brock Besser, 81 games played, 40 goals for him, 33 assists, 73 points. Excellent year out of him. Goaltenders, and we'll certainly talk goaltending a little bit here. Thatcher Demko, 51 games played, had a 35-14-2 record, 2.45 goals against and a .918 save percentage. This might be the most significant player for Vancouver this season. And then Arthur Silovs got into 4 regular season games, 3-0-1, 2.47 goals against average, and 881 save percentage. I don't have his playoff numbers up there, but he played a significant amount of time in the playoffs and really held his own, did a great job. And you hope that with the Demko and Silovs as a tandem, that could be quite good for the team moving into the season. Talking about key additions, they bring over forward Kiefer Sherwood, forward Dan Heinen. That one was a little bit of a, for me, I really like Dan here in Boston. Forward Jake DeBrusk, of course, defenseman Derek Forbert, defenseman Vincent Desjardins. Forward Daniel Sprong was a late signing coming out of Detroit. And just recently, goalie Kevin Lankinen signs there in Vancouver. Going out the door, they did have a lot of exits. Ilya Mikheyev, forward out the door. Forward Sam Lafferty, defenseman Ian Cole, defenseman Nikita Zadorov, forward Elias Lindholm, goalie Casey DeSmith, one of their backups a year ago, of course, former Pittsburgh Penguin, and forward Vasily, I'm going to try to pronounce Podkolzin. I knew that one. Easy. That was easy. Podkolzin. So a lot of movement, a lot of oh, Boston, you're going to take Zadorov and Lindholm. We'll not even take DeBrusk, Heinen, and Forbert off your hands. So a little bit of that going on there. Just looking at the season, kind of looking at big picture stuff here for the team. Demko. We have to just start and stop with Thatcher Demko. I think so much of their season rests squarely on him. It's a playoff team. It's a playoff roster. The team clearly plays differently when Demko's in net. He is, when healthy, is he a top 5 goaltender? Probably. I think so. And this injury is a concern. It's just a concern. I haven't seen any updates over the last couple of days. I was kind of looking around. Last update that I saw was a week or so ago, and they were still kind of talking. You hope he doesn't miss much time, but he's, I don't believe he's still with the team. I think he's still skating on his own. Man, you just as a hockey fan, again, you hope that he can be right. You hope he can be healthy. I think the injury he has is fairly unique, and it clearly affected him last season. If you're a Canucks fan, you are absolutely hopeful that he doesn't miss a whole lot of time. Loss is good enough to get you by a little bit. Clearly, they do go out and sign Lankinen. Ask them for some insurance. Smart to do. But I really think if Demko is out for the year, and I'm not going to go there. I don't think he's going to be. But if this injury lingers and he misses more time than maybe they're suggesting right now, because we know how these things go, right? It can start out and we've seen it in the NHL. Oh, it's a day-to-day injury. Then day-to-day turns into week-to-week. Then week-to-week turns into, it might be a couple months. And then after that, you just stop hearing updates. You do hear that from time to time. Let's keep our fingers crossed. That's not the Thatcher Demko story that we have this year. Let's hope he's just going to be maybe a week or two and get out there and be able to play mostly a full season. He's just so much fun to watch, and you just see the potential on this team when he's in net. I mean, I clearly think that if Demko's in net for that playoff series, you wonder, are they able to knock off Edmonton? Does that change the whole trajectory of the playoffs last year? We'll never know, of course. So we'll see. We'll see on him. Jake DeBrusk, player, of course, here in Boston, we all know too well. Drafted here, played here his whole career. And I think best thing you can say is a very up and down time here in Boston. Wildly talented offensive player, fast. I mean, super, super fast skater. And really had to go through the motions of learning how to become a complete player. And starting under Bruce Cassidy and continuing on with Coach Montgomery, he really developed and has developed into a 200-foot player. Last season, we remember up here in Boston, he played on the PK. Of course, he played some power play too, but he was a PK player. He had never been on the PK, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Right? I mean, it just wasn't a thing that he did. His game wasn't good enough. He would really struggle early on when the puck wasn't on his stick, figuring out ways to still affect the game positively for his team, playing without the puck. It's something that coaches talk about with young players. You hear in college, how do you play without the puck? There's only one puck, 10 skaters out there, so you have to be out there doing other things. And give Jake a ton of credit. He figured it out and has been able to really become a very, very solid, I'd say, second line type forward, 200-foot forward in this league. He's you just got to give him a lot of credit for that, I'll say. Now, the real question I have is, can he be a 30-goal guy? He just got paid pretty handsomely there to go to Vancouver. They do have a lot of scoring already, but I think they're looking at that. The money they gave him is, we're expecting you to be a 30-goal, 75 to 80-point type player, perhaps. And on that team, I think he can be. Looking at his numbers over the years, he hit 27 goals twice in his career, and in both of those seasons, he only played 68 games and 64 games, respectively. So you do the math out, give him 80 games or 82 games, he's probably going to hit 30 there. Yes, maybe, but it's still, again, we got to work off facts, right? He still hasn't done it. He hit 25 once, and then last year was 19 goals. So a little bit down last year. But last year was the year I thought he could maybe get there. with all the losses that the team underwent there in Boston. You hope that he could elevate. Didn't really happen. Still was overall fairly effective, but it was very clear that Boston wasn't going to re-sign him, and I'm not sure how much interest Jake had in staying around. He was interested. I kind of thought Edmonton would take a run at him just with his dad working for the team, but not surprised that he goes out west. Not surprised he ends up in Canada, and I think Vancouver could be a very good fit. I said it earlier on this summer that for any jaded Bruins fans with this, don't be surprised if Jake gets 30 this year. Just to kind of stick it into our sides a little bit, right? We've been wanting him to be a 30-goal guy forever. I wouldn't be shocked if he hits it this year. If he can stay healthy, he's got all sorts of great offensive players around him. For Vancouver fans, one thing to be mindful of with Jake, very, very streaky. Man, when he is hot, he is just in fuego. He is on fire. When he's cold, man, he is like the Yukon Territory cold. Like he is ice cold. Very, very streaky player. So you just have to kind of ride out the cold streaks and embrace those hot streaks when it comes. Now, the good thing for him is when he does have those cold streaks, he is now that 200-foot player. He is still able to go out and play on the PK and play good 5-on-5 defense, and he was still very fast out there. So, that series against Florida in the second round when the team was really scuffling offensively, he was one of the more noticeable players out there on the ice, even when we weren't scoring a lot of goals or even generating shots for that matter. Who'd think it? We need to shoot the puck to score. I don't know. So you're getting a good player. I do think he'll be a 30-goal guy this year. I'll be curious to watch how that goes. Another story I would say is Brock Boeser, expiring contract this year. Where does that end up? Career season for himself a year ago as a $6.65 million cap hit this season. What does Vancouver do here? Do they negotiate with him during the season? Do they wait and see if he can recreate that season? And what does Brock Boeser want to do? I'm not close enough to it to hear all the local chatter. I'm sure you Vancouver fans out there are way more connected to it than I am. Great player. I'm sure they want to hang on to him and keep him. And of course, if you're a Vancouver fan, I'm sure you're hoping that he wants to stay as well. Be curious to see if he can recreate that year, if he gets a pay raise, and where he ends up. Going to be something to watch for. Elias Pettersson. Over 100 points this year. He did take a little bit of a drop in production last season. 89 points versus 102 the year prior. And what really gets people going here on this one is his AAV. It's 11.6 million. So when you're making 11.6 and taking up that cap space, people want to see 40 plus goals. They want to see over 100 points. And that's kind of the money he's getting paid is to produce that. Still only 25 years old, though. I mean, again, he's a player that feels like he's been around forever. Still only 25. And when you look at over the last 3 seasons, he's only missed 4 games. So wildly durable, reliable. Yeah, had a little bit of a down year. And when you think of those last 3 years, he's been over 30 goals each of those 3 seasons. Yes, I know 11.6 AAV, but he's been reliable, durable. I do think that he probably goes over 100 this year. I think I would bet on him having a bounce back season for himself. Should be fun to watch. Last couple I have for you here, guys. Dakota Joshua, of course, news coming out this summer, recovering from surgery via some cancer that he was dealing with. Kind of a scary story there. Seems like he's on the mend, and you certainly hope so. Great player there. Re-signed this season was a. I don't know if he actually made it to free agency, if they signed him right before, but he was a player kind of high on my free agency list in the summer. Last season, played in 63 games, had 18 goals, 14 assists for 32 points, and another player that I do think can elevate a little bit more. He can probably be over a 20-goal guy. You just hope he's healthy. You hope the cancer's gone. Cancer sucks, and hopefully he has beaten it. And last, the dagger in my heart, Danton Heinen, signing there out in Vancouver after coming back to Boston for 1 season. had just a heck of a season for himself in Beantown. Had 17 goals, 19 assists for 36 points through 74 games. Love the story of him coming back. He signed a PTO. And early in camp last season, the Bruins didn't have the money to give him a contract. They were so tight up against the cap, they really couldn't move. Excuse me. And he just stuck around. He stuck around into the season and didn't seek other opportunities. And he wanted to be in Boston, wanted to be there, and they were finally able to honor him with a contract. And he honored the team with just a great line. When you think about where he was playing, had a third line for the most part, but a player that could elevate kind of that Swiss Army knife where you could go up and down the lineup, play in multiple positions, responsible defensive player, of course, a player who had been here before, and was one of those guys that really wanted the Bruins to re-sign. Clearly, the way the money and all that worked out, he got a little bit more money to go to Vancouver, and good on him. I never begrudge a player for taking care of yourself, taking care of your family. It's a very short career that you have, short window to make that money, and these things happen. So it's also part of why Boston brings in someone like a Tyler Johnson to kind of fill that kind of middle forward spot that I think Heinen has vacated, of course. So you're getting a good kind of Swiss Army knife player there in Vancouver. I like the signing from the Canucks a lot. Sans the Demko conversation, this is a clear-cut playoff team. I'm not sure if they win the division again this year. I'm not sure if they necessarily have to, but absolutely should be in that top three in the Pacific, in my opinion. We'll see what happens with the Demko injury. Again, let's just hope and pray that it's not a long-term injury, that they're able to figure some things out and get him on the ice and get him healthy. If he's going to be out, though, for a significant amount of time, I do think the team will have to fight a heck of a lot harder to earn that playoff spot and stay in that top three. But it should be a heck of a fun watch out there in the Pacific Northwest. I know those are great games to watch out east when they start at 10:30, 10 o'clock at night sometimes. It leads to a very, very early morning for us trying to watch those games. But anyway, guys, that is what I have for you for Vancouver. I do have Colorado up next. And then on Friday, we will be doing our Boston Bruins season preview. That will be with Black and Gold Productions host Sam Smith, hosts the Black and Gold podcast. So really looking forward to that conversation. And then after that, I think I've got Carolina. And then we've got the 4 finalists from a year ago. That would be the New York Rangers, the Dallas Stars, the Edmonton Oilers, and, of course, the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. So, guys, if you are liking what you're hearing here, please don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for that support. And until next time, be kind, show love, and God bless.